big city. Today we're going to talk about goats. Started researching goats and started looking into goats, what kind of care they would need, the different varieties of goats. People would write about bad things about goats and good things about goats. And I decided on the pygmy goats because of their high fat content in their milk. Now, generally people think that pygmy goats is the size of goat, and it's not. A pygmy goat is an actual breed. Just because it's a small goat does not mean it's a pygmy goat, because there are other goats that are tiny. Well, tiny in comparison to goats, I guess. But I decided on the pygmy breed because the high fat content in their milk. But that didn't work out for us. We just didn't feel that breeding the goat and taking the baby goat away from its mama and all of that, we just didn't have the farmer intuition to do that sort of thing, so we just didn't do it. But we kept our goats, and they've turned into pets, and they do earn their keep in other ways. Now you might ask yourself, why goats, Miss Annette? And I really don't know why. I decided that I needed some goats on the little farm. I had bees and I had chickens, and I was pretty content with them. However, somehow I kept thinking about goats, about cute little goats. And I started writing about goats and drawing pictures of goats and thinking about goats and planning how I would work goats into the whole scheme of things. And I had a friend that encouraged me and said, go for it. And so I decided to go for it. I looked online for goats that were for sale. I found a lady out in the country. She bred pygmy goats. She showed goats for the 4-H, and I decided to go ahead and call her and see what she had. I took my grandsons out to her little farm, and she had so many cute pygmy goats. And when I went to go see the goats, they were only about this big. They were so tiny, we could carry them around. They were so tiny and so cute, so I couldn't resist them. When we got the goats, I put them in the back of the Mini Cooper. They were that small. And I drove them home. We were in the process of building the barn. We didn't have the barn quite finished. And Mr. Steve and I put them in the old chicken coop, which had a fenced-in area. We went to bed that night, a little bit worried about our baby goats, and went outside to go check on them. And they were gone. We were so frightened. We were looking around everywhere for them. We couldn't find them. Luckily, I had attached their bells to them that they have. And they were across the street in a parking lot. And I went to the fence and I called their names, and I don't know how it happened, but they heard my voice and they ran right to me. I mean, we hadn't even known each other for very few hours, and they came to me. I was so excited to have them back and so worried. I can't even imagine what would have happened to those poor little goats if they'd been lost in a big city like this. But fortunately, Mr. Steve finished our beautiful barn and our fencing, and we secured the goats. And honestly, they've never tried to escape again. And it's funny how they jumped over the back gate and got out, but they've never done that again. They've never jumped out of the gate again. They've stayed in the yard and in the fenced area. Our whole area is fenced in. You can't get out. And we did that when we had the dogs, to keep the dogs secure. And it's really helped with all of our other animals that we added on into the little farm. In building this adorable barn, Mr. Steve took into consideration how many animals it was going to house and how much room each required. Since I decided we were only going to have 2 goats, the barn didn't have to be extremely huge. And it's just right for the little animals that are in it. This is the inside of the barn. This area is for the chickens, and it's closed off so the goats won't bother the chickens, but we can still get access to the eggs. This is a platform where they sleep, their bag of hay, their minerals that they need. This is a thermostat. This helps us keep an eye on the temperature to make sure things aren't too hot in here or too cold, to make sure the humidity is just right, because humidity can really make a goat sick. There's their entrance to the barnyard. And since they're out running around the yard, there isn't a soul in sight. Except for Oreo laying her eggs. We have all sorts of things for them to jump on and play on. They have a box, and this is our old table, and they love getting on it. They love to be laying around in the shade and just taking a nap in the afternoon after they're done eating. So their enclosure has a lot of things for them to do when they're enclosed. They have their rock pile, their balance beam, that's the water, and then we have these rocks that lead to their barn because they don't like to get their hooves muddy. And when it rains, these little rocks come in handy for the little goats. Not only do I try to keep the barn clean, I also try to keep the area outside clean by raking it every day. It's something that I do to keep the flies down and to keep our animals healthy. On the little farm, the goats require some care, and some of the care that they require is having their hoofs trimmed. So we're going to go ahead and do that. I can't do it by myself, so I need some help. So Mr. Steve holds the goats, and I use these to trim their nails.
That's better, I think.
Yeah. Good big girl. Good girl. Good girl. What are you mad about there? Huh? Look at how pretty you are. Nails done.
She done?
No, she has one more leg to do. Right here. Okay, all done. One One thing you may or may not know about goats is that we have to take them to the vet. We take them yearly to get vaccinated, to get dewormed, and we trim their hooves 2 or 3 times a year. You might be wondering, what do goats eat? Well, they eat hay and grain. They really love to eat trees and bushes. I know a lot of people think that goats will eat anything, but that's not true. Goats are kind of particular about what kind of trees they'll eat, what kind of grass they'll eat. They have to have a certain kind of hay. They don't like fancy hay that you would feed a horse. They like kind of junky hay that has a lot of weeds and clover in it. Even the chickens like the goat hay. Let's take a closer look and see what it has in it. See, a lot of weeds. And here's some clover right here. And that's what they like to eat. They also like to eat trees and bushes. Good morning, Goldie. We also feed our pygmy goats some grain. We give them just a little bit in the morning and a little bit in the afternoon. They love to eat the grain. That's why we don't give them too much. They should get all the nutrients they need from their grass. When you have goats, you need a lot of space. We have space for their food. Space for their harnesses. Space for their equipment. One of the ways that the goats earn their keep is by keeping away predatory birds. Since we got our goats, we haven't had any hawk attacks on our chickens or on our ducks. Hawks are a problem here in the little farm. Here the goats are eating the rhubarb, which I have a lot of rhubarb, so I don't really mind some of the times when they eat things from the garden, as long as it's something that I have a lot of and that I don't really mind sharing. You girls are hungry. These goats are actually true sisters, which means they have the same mother. They're actually twins. This is Leche. She has little white ears and a little white muzzle. Dulce is almost all the way black. They're really hungry this morning. Thank you for visiting Miss Annette's little farm in the big city. Make sure you get outside today, and we'll see you next time. Bye!